Good morning, Cleo.
Good morning, Sean. So I started a project this week called the My Name is Earl Project, which is named after the TV show My Name is Earl, which I don't know if you've ever seen it or heard about it.
Mm.
So My Name is Earl is a show, and it's believe it or not, it's really moving. It's incredibly foul. It has a lot of foul language in it, but it's about a character who decides after he has won the lottery that he has done so many bad things in his life that he really needs to go back and apologize to every person who he has ever hurt, who he has ever wronged. And these are people like who went to jail for him. People who like he managed to shift the blame to somebody else so he didn't go to jail, but somebody else did, and they did the time that he was supposed to do for the crime.
Mm.
And so it's very it sounds, when you first start watching it, you're like, oh, it's a little bit painful because it can be incredibly negative, but it's so powerful. There's an example that I would like to share with you. He goes back to a friend who is a daredevil, who is someone who spent his career, leaping motorcycles over cars, in truck shows. And now this guy has a brain injury and cannot remember anything. And so Earl slept with this man's wife and destroyed his marriage. And so he has come back to try to apologize to this man. But the man does not remember anything that Earl did. He doesn't remember that his wife is gone. He thinks his wife is on vacation. He doesn't remember that he's divorced. He doesn't remember that his friend did this terrible thing to him. So when his friend comes to him, he says, "Oh, hey, I have this goal to jump over the Grand Canyon. You want to help me achieve it?" And his friend is like, "No, I've come back to apologize to you for destroying your marriage because of what I did." And the guy goes, "You did what? That's terrible." And he's mad and he won't speak to him. And the next day he wakes up, his friend wakes up and doesn't remember anything that happened the day before. And so he's like, "Oh, my friend, you've come back. My wife's on vacation. Hey, I have this goal to jump over the Grand Canyon. You want to help me do it?" And so every day, Earl has to sort of discover what apologizing looks like, what
Mm.
atonement looks like, what is the best thing that can happen between these two people. With this man in the position that he's in, what can he do that, even though he will, in a way, never be able to atone for what happened, what can he do that will create something beautiful so that he can, in his heart, know that he has done the right thing and somehow made up for the wrongs that he has done in his life. And it is really accurate to what this process looks like and how difficult it can be, and how apologizing and
Mm.
trying to make something beautiful doesn't necessarily ever look the way we want it to look, and yet how we have to be willing to accept that. One person, so the guy who went to jail for him, he goes back to that man and tries to make up to him for him spending years in jail, a large part of his life. And it is actually his mother who he really has to atone to. The mother is furious because of all the years that she lost with her son. And
Mm.
he can never replace that. So, what can he do in order to bring some kind of healing to this relationship and some kind of atonement for what he's done? And he finally decides the best thing he can do is to get the mom to stop smoking, because if she lives longer, she'll have the time with her son that she wanted, that she is not going to get if she dies early from smoking. And so he spends an entire episode trying to find ways to get this woman to stop smoking. You know, these are the ways in our lives that we spend trying to find, you know, I think that I know you and I have talked about this before, where we have this overwhelming tug that we know that we have a contract with someone, that we know that that we've made an agreement, that we know that we're supposed to heal them. And then we have this idea of what that looks like. Well, healing someone looks like this. Teaching someone looks like this. If I'm not sitting down with you with a script and a test and telling you this information and you can regurgitate it back to me, then I didn't teach you something. Right? And so being able to go to all these different places in our life where we have that tug and maybe we drop the ball. So I made a list this week of people who I dropped the ball with. It's 2 pages long. It's really long. People who I feel like I had this connection and I blew it somewhere along the way. Something happened and I'm not in connection with these people anymore. And I want the real thing, what's really impactful, which is just our presence, right? People learn from us in the quiet things that we do. They learn from us in our heartfelt connection, in just being there and just spending time with them.
Wow. What a project.
So my question to you is it ever over? Is this a lifelong project?
I believe it continues after our death too. So no, it's not over. You know, there's something inside of me that says that when I finish this life, I pick up where I left off and continue on just in another dimension, another story, and another unfamiliar place. But what I really like about addressing atonement is that it brings us back to a place of humility and appreciation for what is going on and for how the process affects us. I think that being able to approach the things that did not go well, that created that disconnection and that pain and space between us, that every time we think about it, it rubs us raw. Those are the best places to go back and to redesign them. And one way we can redesign that is to be able to take that energy and practice it in areas that are not as charged as the person we're wanting to approach. What I see in my life is that as I take something and expand it across each part of my life, each role, I gather the important nutrition that goes into healing the person that I have that affliction with. And that can really generate some solutions to offer and to explore with them the best route out of where the two are, where I am at with that person.
That's interesting. I never thought of that. I never thought about, I'm kind of having that experience of trial by fire, of we don't think we have the skills. We don't think that we have the ability to make this better. We show up and we have to come up with something. And part of that discovery is is where we get the confidence to say, yes, I do have the skills to do this. Yes, I do have the ability to step in to a broken old friendship that I have lost and say, hey, I'm sorry, what happened? This is what happened on my side, um, and I apologize. And even Ho'oponopono, which I know we've talked about
Mm-hmm.
before, the Hawaiian forgiveness mantra, is all about taking responsibility for
Mm-hmm.
everything. That, the philosophy behind it is all about our manifestation, that no matter what it is that's going on, that we manifested it. And that by taking responsibility and admitting whatever it is that we did that created this, that this is always the path to healing those
Yeah.
experiences.
And that oftentimes it's not an issue until you bring it up. In other words, it's forgotten. They didn't take it the way you did. And all of a sudden you're dealing with a brand new wound, right? You've cut the skin and exposed the nerves. And I think that that's where I look at, if I created it in one relationship, then the potential of it already being a part of another relationship is already in action, because it comes from me. It originates from me. And that's the part that we're addressing.
Yeah. This is so important for people to realize. I certainly have learned this as a parent, that we are creating our relationships when we're not talking to someone, but when we're talking about them.
Hmm.
And so many, many times I will, to my son, be oh so strict with myself and keep myself in very good words and very positive attitude and very supportive. And the next day I'm complaining about all those things that I'm trying so hard to help him with. And on the third day, it's as though he has heard that entire conversation. And his behavior is spiraled down, as though I told him all those things, as though all my worst expectations he is suddenly aware of. And
Hmm.
it's like, wow, how I've seen this over and over and over again. I've seen it with other parents who try to have a private conversation with another mom, because we need to vent sometimes. We need validation. We need somebody else's input. Oh my God, this thing is going on and I don't know how to handle it.
Hmm.
But when I think you taught me so much about how this works, about how we need to be able to have that conversation and still have it be in a beautiful and a supportive and a positive framework, instead of in this disappointed, broken, messed up space where we feel out of control, because then that is what is manufactured in that relationship the next time we step into that space. We've
Yeah.
already created it. And all that happens is it plays out. This is how we manifest everything. We don't realize that it's so overwhelmingly powerful.
Well, and one thing to keep in mind, that if we're coming from a lower vibration, let's say of fear or insecurity, then we're approaching the solution as a victim. And we're going to be eliciting pity for understanding rather than responsibility for solutions. And so I think that being able to practice showing up at a level that we can sustain and follow through with is where the problem occurred in the first. You know, that's where it began. And so being able to go back to that place and be able to practice with our friendships, with our I highly suggest getting people that you can practice with and role play with, and develop these skills in places that are not threatening, rather than jumping in and going, okay, well, the hardest person to talk to is Joe, so I'm going to go start with him. Well, it's like there's a lot that can affect multiple relationships if we bring it to our tribe and anoint it before we go out, because then we have the power of the group supporting our efforts to follow through and be who we see ourselves and design our skills to support that.
Wow, what a beautiful idea. That is amazing. So, wow, I'm trying to imagine a group that I could do that with. That's pretty cool. I could do that with you, but I'm trying to imagine like a group of people that could have that conversation and not turn it into accusation. Women have a whole culture of really being very hard on each other. They can be very, I remember being a part of a group once that would routinely make me cry, like in a state of guilt and shame for whatever it was that I brought up in the group. And it took me a long time to realize that I had to really show up sort of like ready to fight. And then if I showed up ready to fight, everything was fine. Everybody could completely accept me and everything was fine and nobody kind of went for my jugular. But if I showed up and I was open and vulnerable and weak, I would be like a TV dinner.
Pounced
Yes.
on. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, those are not your tribe. And I say
Interesting.
that sincerely because I think we use groups for different reasons. And you've created a group called Healing Waters for Empaths that you have shown up differently in because of who is in the group energetically that you don't even know or haven't even talked to. And that is that space that I'm talking about, is recognizing that the people we're surrounded with, they mirror the strengths and weaknesses that we are working through, that we're working on. That law of attraction is so natural that we are often not aware of its presence or its power. But if we can stimulate it by asking for that support and then stepping into how we need to be to correct the problem, I think that is the best beginning to the solution.
I love this. Thank you so much for this conversation today. I so appreciate it. I love the beauty that you bring to really, truly ugly situations. It is really remarkable to see and to witness, to be in a room and see you do this is really amazing. I remember seeing you in situations where people are angry, frustrated, sad, upset, and to watch you be able to just be silent and patient and not say anything. And when you do speak, there's healing energy and a completely different direction that your words lead those people in. And is very beautiful to witness. And it's really it's like watching a miracle to see, to watch Sean work in this kind of a situation is truly beautiful. I could go on and on about that. But I think that, sometimes you've given me essays that are about this, about bringing the silence into a conversation that might be painful or sticky, and bringing this healing energy in order to calm the waters.
Yeah. And really that's the most important aspect. In my native tradition of Christianity, it was asking the Holy Spirit to intercede. And it's never in my understanding that creates the healing. It's in what is interpreted through the opening of the other person's heart. And when we come together in a place where we are being authentic and humble and compassionate towards each other, we see different aspects in each other that are ready to emerge and to be added to the experience. It's really what is described as always be in prayer. It's being in that mindful space as you go throughout the day, and really take from that the nutrition that you need for that day.
This is super cool. I love this topic. I think one of the things that we don't realize is how many times our angels bring to us people who are there for us to heal. We meet someone and we might feel sorry for them. We might feel attracted to them. We might even be repelled by them. And when we feel that connection, that, oh, I recognize something, I recognize someone in this person, this is the call to connect with them. And it's the call of God, of our responsibility on the planet to care for each other. And sort of, if you want to be engaged in your life, in the purpose, the true purpose of all people's life on the planet Earth, is to make that connection with whoever it is that we are brought to, or who is brought to us.
Yeah, I really think that is the riches that the kingdom of glory is, about. That it's about the attributes, it's about the mindfulness, the authenticity, and the recognition that if I want to really heal my life, find someone who needs what I have learned and share my struggles with them. I think that there is so much that can be exchanged when we allow ourselves to be the teacher and the student and come alongside of each other and share that journey, so that whenever you're going through and whatever I'm coaching you through, I'm also doing myself. So we have some stories to pull from and to share together that can really make that space more inviting and supported, as we find a solution and make some changes.
Can you talk some about healing your father? I know this is a great example of approaching a relationship that is truly deeply fractured and healing it without actually that conceptual experience that we have of, I will now teach you this. The words will come out of my mouth. They'll go into your ear. You will repeat them. You will understand. Can you talk about that healing?
Yeah. I was doing let me get a drink of water.
Thank you for talking about it, because I know it's super emotional.
Yeah.
Topic.
Well, let's see. I was encouraged to start a project just like what you're starting now. And the person on my list, one of them was my father. So I went to him and asked him, well, You know, do you have any grievances towards me? Is there anything that I can recognize, where we can work together to create some healing? And he said, well, do you want me to be honest? I think you're the biggest asshole I've ever met. And that's not what I was expecting. You know, it really hurt. It really hurt to feel that and take that in. But what it did was it showed me the difference between um, what I thought respect looked like and felt like to me was the opposite of what it looked and felt like to him. I didn't realize that I was on the precipice of understanding that we have been in competition for my mother's affection my entire life. And that really set up an interaction between us where we could not see or hear each other, period. And so we would stand, just like the Dr. Seuss story where um, the two characters are not going to step out of the way for each other, and the whole city's built around them. And that's kind of what we created in our life. And so, with the help of my community, I took the time to go into my soul, to search my soul, and to pray from that, to pray from a place that had no anticipation or expectation of what I thought he needed to do to change, but to explore what I needed to do to change and to pray for that. Um, and then I asked my mother to give me feedback as to his progress so I could adjust the prayer. And so I prayed for um, years. Um, and, there is a time where he came to Denver where I was at. It was the first time he saw me in my environment. Things started shifting, and he saw the impact that I had in people's lives, and people um, had the same thing to say about me. And it was really an interesting conversation where, over many years of healing Sean and my father healing my father, we could hear where each other were at. And so it took a lot of work. It took a lot of years. But, 3 years before his death, um, I like to use the analogy of like a whirlwind romance. It was like 3 years of falling in love with each other and healing the distance that we created for most of our lives. And so, what I realized through that is that I had to learn those ways of honoring and respecting him by respecting everybody in my life differently. And so it changed how I listened. It changed what I chose to focus my attention on and the qualities that were important to develop, not just in my life, but in preparation so that I could be seen and heard. But what I didn't understand, and what I came to understand, is that I can only give that to myself. That until I feel seen and heard from Sean, I can never be seen and heard from anyone else. So there's the cliff notes to one of my favorite projects in life.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And thank you for a nice cry to start the day off with.
Oh my God, Sean. I'm sorry. And I'm also so grateful for your vulnerability and your willingness to share with us this story. It's always so incredible to witness
Yeah.
the incredible work that you've done in your life. It's just amazing.
Well, I think a good good way to give an action step for this is to realize that when we are approaching this atonement, this project on forgiveness, right, that we're projecting, for one. In other words, we're healing the parts in ourselves that we see in the other person. And we're also moving beyond ourselves so we can clearly understand the experience of the other person. And so when we can identify the difference between those two experiences and appreciate how they work off of each other, then I can have who I am because I begin there. And then I can hear what Cleo has to say because I'm putting I'm putting myself aside to take in who you are and what you what is important to you in the moment.
Wow. Thank you so much for this dialogue this morning. This is amazing. And I know our viewers are going to love this. And I'm going to just add here at the end, we just launched this week Compassion Speak Grief Circle, which is our new Facebook group for grief support. So be sure to look for that. And that will be another Compassion Speak project between Sean and I. So I'm really excited about that and excited to see you there.
Yeah. And may your wounds find you ready to embrace the impact that you have in the world. That first it may begin with what is painful and broken, but those become the strongest parts of what we're being called into and capturing.
Thank you so much for this time. I so appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a great day.